Hey everyone, Dan here. Today we're going to look at the US steel stock, ticker symbol X. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's jump right in. So full disclosure, I took a position in X earlier today and wanted to kind of talk about what I'm seeing and why. There's a bunch of interesting things going on, some things that are like very, very speculative, some things that look pretty solid. Let me just preface this with saying, a couple of ways to think about X, since it is steel stock, is one, some folks have been thinking about it basically as an indirect hedge against all of these growth and tech stocks that have been that have taken a beating lately. And then the other thing is, with all of the talk or all of the legislation around infrastructure lately, a lot of folks and a lot of institutions seem to potentially be betting on the fact that that will play out and that it will benefit some of these stocks. So let's jump into what I've prepared. So let's start out with the chart. So the chart, it's in this very steep uptrend right now. As you can see, I did this. This is the 1 hour chart. I did this sort of midday today. So, but this basically sustained throughout the day. And so, as we're in this steep up channel, I don't expect it to hold this steep of an up channel. I mean, if it does, congratulations to everyone who's in it, because that's going to be a heck of a ride. What I would maybe look for is sort of immediate support at that 25.75 level. And then a pretty quick cautionary zone if it can't hold that 25.41. And then, if you wanted to think about pretty quick hitting stop loss, 24.88 could be a zone to think about if it can't hold that, given the recent support there and then the previous resistance that it saw. It'll definitely fall out of the channel at that point, which I think it'll blow this channel up sooner than later anyway. It'll just depend sort of like if it blows it up and then bounces and just starts to form a different type of up channel, or if something sort of more to the downside happens. If it does, I could actually see a dip buy zone evolving at that 23.61 level, which is why that's green. Given all of the support and resistance that has accumulated in the recent days, that's of interest to me if it does break the channel and continues down for a bit. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's hop over to the indicators. So the MAs are looking great, as you would imagine. It's obviously in a bullish formation. The other way to think about those MAs is, with them in this bullish formation all lined up, not only should they give indications if they do turn bearish, the 12 would cross underneath the 20 would cross underneath the 50, and so on and so forth. So it would give you sort of like a bunch of heads up that it's turning bearish. And then the other thing is it could sort of like dip down to that 12, dip down to that 20, and like all of those MAs should offer additional levels of support. So if the price does dip down there, you should look for it to at least put up a little bit of fight before it crosses over that level. And give you an opportunity to either dip buy or give you an opportunity to take profit or just sort of like validate what's happening and hold whatever you're feeling at the time. But the RSI and the MACD are very high, as you can see. I mean, interestingly enough, though, that distance, at the time that I snapped this screenshot, the distance between that MACD and that signal line was still increasing. So as high as it is, that was still growing. So it does leave itself quite a bit of room to sort of maybe not even like fall, but even just sort of like take a breath and cool off a little bit. And that might be an opportunity for some folks to get in, depending on how it sort of holds its price strength if it does take a dip. We haven't looked at this before, and it's something we can talk about more, but the cost distribution, this is from yesterday because there wasn't the May 4th info that wasn't updated yet. So I did scroll back through earlier in April and kind of see what happens when there becomes this very lopsided, the vast majority of shares are profitable. And typically that has shown to kind of result in some selling off, some profit taking happening. But the other way to look at it, you see these big green bars that are extending off to the right. Those are the higher volume areas of price. So as you see, like as you get down into the 23s and then as you approach 22, there's a lot of potential buying volume there that you could look for from day to day. So if it does dip, that might be an additional area for you to look at if you did want to try to sort out something that looks like a reasonable dip buy. And yeah, but 81.76% of the shares were profitable. So congrats for everyone who's caught this so far. Now we're going to get into potential like shorts situation. So, I did some looking at the data that we have on short selling, and this is from MarketBeat. But basically here, if you look at that red graph, the dollar volume is at its peak as far as like the timeline that this chart covers at least. So 847 million dollar volume sold short. So, obviously increasing lately. It was at this level, as you can see, sort of like between, I don't know if that's late Q4 or early Q1, but, so sort of like surpassing that level after it had dipped a little bit. So it's definitely picking up steam, which is interesting. So as the shorts come in, it'll be interesting to see if that drives the price down or if they get sort of like stopped out and squeezed out really, really quickly, in the sense of like not a like traditional short squeeze where there's all this pent up squeeze potential, but sort of like just an ongoing like pow, 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 day after day, people are getting squeezed out. I mean, you do see that short interest ratio, the days to cover, 1.6. So folks aren't sort of holding us for very long. And the other thing to look at is the percentage of shares shorted, 12.6%. A very typical kind of cutoff is considered, for to be considered high is anything over 10%. If you're looking for something like very, very high, then you could start looking for things over 20%, which these days there's definitely a lot of those. But it does look to me like some of this volume is increasing, so that it'll be interesting to see what happens, like if they continue to get squeezed out immediately, like relatively quickly, or if something does kind of take hold here. So month over month, you'll see the shorts are increasing as well. And so, that is just kind of additional data to prove out that the idea that it is increasing, not just the dollar amount, but the actual share amount. And then the 14% of the float being shorted, so the 12% that we saw on the previous slide, that was of total shares. This is just of the float. So that gets us additionally additionally over the 10%. So new and old shorts on the left-hand side, you see a little bit of like very recent data from April 20th to today. And you see the short volume ratio on the right-hand column there, holding steady / increasing slightly. That 1934, definitely the highest value on that right side. Obviously on 428, it did hit that 1928, so it's pretty close, but still increasing the short volume ratio. On the right-hand side, you see that it is a bit lower if you look at a greater time span, a 1-year time span here. But if you think about it from like a charting perspective, if you look at the lows, like the dips from February of 2021 on, you see that all of those dips are higher. So at the points at which the shorts start to decrease, it is still more, it still is a higher level of shorts than it was the previous time that it decreased. So it's making higher lows. Looking at sort of the analyst side of things, so there was this big Credit Suisse price target raise that was more than double so they had it at 15, and today they came out and said, nope, we're upgrading it to 35. So my question here is basically like, is this going to spur a bunch of additional analysts to kind of follow on, and release some additional upgraded price targets and some outperform ratings, which would just bring more people into the stock theoretically and continue to push that price higher. So with the additional shorts coming in, and then potentially the additional positive outlook unfolding, it'll be interesting to see just sort of like how that plays out. Aside from this Credit Suisse thing that just happened today, overall there's like a mixed bag, but all toward the buy side. So 2 buys, 2 holds of the 6 analysts that have price targets out there so far. The average of them is 27.38, so that's about 4% higher than where we're trading at, or at least when I created this slide earlier in the day. Insiders are, it looks like a mixed bag, but really what's happening is like there's many more sells happening by way of a transaction, but the size of those transactions are small. So if you look at the number of shares, there's actually like 3 to 4 times the number of shares being bought over the last 12 months, but also over the last 3 months. And then like additional shares obviously being held. And so, the buys are definitely outweighing the sells. And so it's like a weird way to look at it, but just keep in mind that those transactions must be a smaller amount of shares. And so the bigger transactions are actually the buys. So that's how the buys are so far ahead of the sells. So insiders are pretty much buying. Institutions, pretty bullish. So there's 82 new positions versus 44 that sold out. 171 institutions have increased their position versus 142 who's decreased. 64 has held. So if you take that sort of like buy and hold and add it together, then it's a pretty good ratio versus the decreased positions. I would like to see that spread be quite a bit wider, but it is what it is, and you just have to like analyze it for that being the case. But you do see on the right hand side BlackRock, Vanguard, Morgan Stanley. So these are great, like renowned investors and institutions, and so them having holdings in this stock can be seen as sort of additional, I don't know, whatever that thing with human nature is, where people want to do the thing that other people are doing. It can be sort of like seen as that. All right, so that is my case for US Steel, ticker symbol X. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that it sort of made sense at least, but I hope it gave you potentially some ideas. Please feel free to share your thoughts, your opinions in the comments below. I look at them every weekend. I respond to the ones that I feel that it makes sense to respond to. So for instance, if someone's just asking me like, hey, is this going to go up or down? Like, I know as much as I put into the video, and even a lot of that is speculation, which I try to be very clear with. So just know that if you're asking me things like, is this going to go up tomorrow? Or do you think this will like go up next week? I have no idea. But yeah, if the information that you're looking for is not in the video, then, you can definitely just search for additional videos on the ticker, and I'm sure other folks will have their opinion and their thoughts, and maybe some of them have crystal balls to to help you peer into. But anyway, I appreciate the likes and the subscribes, and if you're able to share it on Reddit or Twitter or Facebook or what have you, that definitely goes a long way. Okay, well, good luck if you're in X or if you get into X, and no matter what you're trading this week, I hope that it's going well, and I wish you the best, and I will see you in the next video.